Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast as we review Week 13 in the NFL. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis. With me today, I've got a returning guest, part of the Third and Long podcast. From one end of Wales to the other end of Wales, with me today is Shane Harris. Shane, how are you?
What you mean to say is the best end of Wales. Thank you, Brad. Andy, you all right? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. How's things?
Yeah, good, mate, good. Good to have you on. And of course, I've not had you on since you were in London for the London games.
I know.
How was that? How was that experience? I know you met up with a few people like Matt Cullen. I saw you met up with and Baldy the big fella. How was that? Sadly, not me, but how was that experience?
One day we'll do it. One day, I promise.
It will happen. Yeah, I guarantee it. The thing is, we're so close to each other, location-wise. I mean, it's,
now we are.
Yeah. So it's Yeah, it will happen at some point, I'm sure of it. But it seemed like from what I saw on socials, you had a great time. I mean, taking away your nightmare journey home from one of the games. You had a great time by the sounds of it.
Yes, but it's always a privilege to go to any of the London games. It's a fantastic experience. The only thing I would change about that day is I would leave the house earlier, because I literally got up there for 1:30 and kickoff was 2:30, so I didn't have a chance to really network or see many people. I was literally sat with my buddy, Ollie Butler Henderson, who I only see once a year, which is a shame, considering he doesn't live that far from me either. So at the time we had a bit of a catch up, and I went to get a bottle of water because I was gasping from walking from Seven Sister Station straight down the road to Spurs Stadium. And get a bottle of water, and before I knew it was kickoff time, and I just love it. I just love the fact that all the fans come together from all corners of the UK, all different fans of different teams, different players, and I will say the amount of Ravens jerseys I saw done me proud that day.
Was there many? Because I will say, like, I always see the classic ones. Well, nowadays you see Chiefs, but you see always a lot of Seahawks, Bears, Niners, Dolphins, Patriots, but I never see. I mean, if you take away the Ravens game last year when they were playing, games I've seen where Ravens aren't playing, if I'm honest, I don't see many Ravens jerseys. You see a few, but I never really see that many. I don't know whether it's just because Baltimore's not a desirable location to travel, or maybe it's not the most well-known team. They've only won 2 Super Bowls, and they never really had till now, really, maybe Ray Lewis back in the day, a real star. Like, I think even back in the day, I think Ray Lewis maybe wasn't known worldwide, whereas people like Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady are known by non-NFL fans, and maybe only NFL fans would know who Lamar Jackson is, would know who Ray Lewis is, or Joe Flacco as well. Well, why do you think that is? Why do you think? It seems to me, I could be wrong, and you probably know more than me, doesn't seem to be that many Ravens fans in the UK.
I think it's just me, the fact that whenever I go to the London games, I'm always looking out for Ravens jerseys. Because as a Dolphins fan, for your sins, you basically walk past her and you wouldn't even think about it. I tend to look for them. There's a couple of UK chapters of Ravens fan clubs popping up and down the UK. They have meets every so often, a couple of times a season. I've been to the Bristol one. The boys are a great bunch of boys. And I just think, like, as you said, 2-time Super Bowl champions, won by Trent Dilfer and Joe Flacco. I think if Lamar Jackson did ever win a Super Bowl, contrary to popular belief, Ollie Hope reckons he can't win a playoff game. He's got as many MVPs as he has playoff wins. Whatever, baby. I think they'll explode in popularity then, because people follow success. You've already got to look at the Chiefs and Man City to a lesser extent. Exactly. People who sort of want an entry level into this sport, they're going to follow the best team. So I think when eventually Lamar Jackson wins the Super Bowl for the Ravens, and he will, I'm fully confident of it. I think there'll be more bandwagon jumpers, but then, come aboard. I've been a fan for 22 years. Come aboard. You're all welcome here.
I will say this. I've been banging them every week. I will be asking you later on for your Super Bowl predictions, but I've been banging every week. I've been saying the Ravens winner. I do feel it's Lamar Jackson's year, and I feel the whole playoff thing is completely unjustified, because they were saying the same thing about Peyton Manning back in the day when he couldn't win a playoff game. They were saying the same thing about, I imagine, John Elway back in the day. It took just one Super Bowl win for the whole narrative to change on Peyton Manning, the whole narrative to change on John Elway. So I think, whilst Lamar Jackson, same as Josh Allen, They are two quarterbacks that have struggled in the big games and had their kryptonites, mainly the Chiefs. I do feel like at some point these things are there to be broken. The Chiefs can't win it every year. I don't think they make the Super Bowl this year. I believe it is Allen or Jackson winning the AFC. I do believe it's Ravens or Bills winning the AFC and playing in the Super Bowl. And I feel like Lamar Jackson, yeah, he's had his problems, but it just takes one big win to change that, or one magical run. So I think, Nick Foles, for example, he is nowhere near the talent of Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, but he had that one Super Bowl run. Next year, he won playoff games again with the Eagles, but maybe he wouldn't have if they hadn't gone on that run. So I do feel like, it's Lamar Jackson's got a lot of critics, same as Josh Allen, but I do feel like this year is the year. I know the Chiefs are 11-1. I know they got that win in calamitous style for the Raiders on Friday night in that Black Friday game. Go 11-1, but they've got the lowest point differential, I believe, of any 11-1 team, and they are probably the worst 11-1 team I've seen. I mean, they're efficient, they're winning games. That's the most important thing. But we were saying this last year, but I just don't see the Chiefs. This been sustainable in the big game. They played the Bills and lost there. I know it was a regular season, but I do feel like Lamar Jackson. It is his year. What are your thoughts on that, Shane?
You've only got to look at the Chiefs in the last 3 games, right? They scraped past the Raiders, and the Raiders are very poor. Even though they beat us, they're very poor. They scraped past the Broncos on a blocked field goal. And the game in between that, they lost to probably the best team in football that's not called the Detroit Lions. I don't think the Chiefs are impressive this year at all. But them, as you will be aware of this, are much like Liverpool. They haven't even got to play well, and they always manage to grind out results. And right? They always manage to grind out results. But no, I don't think they're in the Super Bowl this year at all. And for another thing, I wouldn't count the Ravens out yet. Phil said on our group chat weeks ago, he's all in on the Ravens to win Super Bowl. I mean, if they can sort out their suspect defense this year, which has been a bit up and down, I want to start calling the Pepsi Max because up and down, up and down. But it's just, I mean, when we move on to it later, I'll tell you who I think is going to be in the Super Bowl.
Let's do it now. Let's do it now. Whilst on the topic, I mean, I'm going to go. If I'm sticking to my pick to start the year, I'm going for Ravens Packers. I've been saying it every week, and especially after the game against the Dolphins, where they did beat us. The score, it was 30 points to 17. Again, once again shown. I love their receiving core, and I think they got a brilliant coach in the floor. And I think everything I mentioned about the Ravens, I do feel like it is Lamar Jackson's year, and I do think they'll win the Super Bowl in New Orleans. But Shane, let's get your 2 teams who are winning the AFC and the NFC this season.
Right. This is probably going to be the popular pick, but it's also the accurate and correct pick. AFC, I'm going to go with Bills. And NFC, to the shock of no one, I'm going with Dan Campbell's Lions. It's going to be incredible because the Bills have never won a Super Bowl, and they lost 3 on the bounce. I believe it was the early 90s, I believe.
Yeah, 4 on the bounce, actually.
4 on the bounce, sorry, my mistake. And then it's going to be against everyone's favourite second team, the Detroit Lions, a little engine that could and is. You know what I mean? I think that's going to be a fantastic game, even for the neutral, because of all the storylines going into it, and they're both really, really good teams.
Yeah, see, the Lions for me are the best team in the league right now. But I said it in last week with Ollie, actually, who came on our show last week, that I have this vision in my head of Lions being the number 1 seed in the NFC, Packers being maybe a 5th or 6th seed in the NFC, and I have this vision of Romeo Dobbs catching a game-winning touchdown, 40 seconds left of the game in Detroit to shock the home crowd and send them there. I just have this horrible feeling, not the horrible feeling, I don't mind. I just had this image in my head of, firstly, Lamar Jackson beating Mahomes finally, but I have this image of Romeo Dobbs catching a touchdown from Jordan Love, like an iconic drive down the field from like maybe the 10 or 20 yard line from Jordan Love. And I can just see it. I can just picture the Packers beating the Lions, shocking everyone. And I think the Lions, whilst they've been amazing, I think we'll get onto it in a minute, but you have to be concerned a little bit by how they ended the game against the Bears, who have been really bad this year. And I think, the defense has shown a little bit of a frailty now. I think teams can watch the tape on that loss. I do feel like they could shock everyone and go out actually and lose the NFC Championship game to the Packers. I still have this faith, this belief that the Packers will make it. But I think if you want to, I think I said for years that if you want a Super Bowl, the best thing you want, if it's not your team involved, is two teams that have not won it before. And I think we almost got that with the Eagles Vikings a few years ago. We had a Super Bowl Final Four in that season when the Buccaneers won it years ago, when it was 3 teams who hadn't won it in the Jags, Buccaneers, and I forget the third team. Maybe it was the Eagles, but I think that's what you want as a fan. You want a new team winning it. No one likes seeing the same team win it. No one likes seeing the Patriots win it all those years ago. And no one likes the Chiefs right now. And I think if you can have 2 teams that have not won it before, that would be amazing. I mean, I personally would be definitely cheering on the Lions over the Bills if that was it, because I wouldn't want the Bills. Even though, I made some good friends in Buffalo, particularly David, and I'd be really happy for him because he's from Buffalo, lifelong fan, season ticket holder for years. I'd be ecstatic for him because it's his ultimate dream in sport. But as a Dolphins fan, I can't have the Bills winning. I just can't. It's it'll be too painful. This team's caused me too much heartache in my way more than the Patriots and Jets. So for me, yeah, I would be cheering on the Lions definitely, especially with their all their pain they've had over the last 20, 30 years. But yeah, what a Super Bowl that would be. But moving on, though, we all go on to Thursday's game, the first of 3 games, which of course our annual serving of Thanksgiving, which shocked everyone. Paul Merson was on punditry for a little bit.
I know. I was like, what? Need a new job.
I mean, he did years ago. He did write articles for Sky Sports NFL years ago. This was like maybe mid 2010s, but then he never did it again for a while. Then he suddenly, out of nowhere, started doing albeit only for 1 game or 2 quarters. But I quite liked it. I thought he actually talked a lot of sense. He seems to know what he's talking about, and he's quite I've always liked Paul Merson anyway as a guy, and found him really intriguing. So I found that I thought he's actually really good to listen to. But the game itself was really really fascinating. I mean, it was a real game of 2 halves. The Lions were miles ahead of the Bears at one point. At one point, it was 22-7 to the Lions. This was in the 3rd quarter. Was the 4th quarter coming up, very closely by. And out of nowhere, the Bears just got back into the game. And then the play that everyone's going to talk about is the final play of the game. So the Bears were on 3rd and 26. They had about 30 seconds left of the game. They had 1 timeout left, chose not to use it. They were going on a hurry-up play, kept not using that timeout. And eventually, it got to 7 seconds left without that timeout used. They went for the pass. Caleb Williams failed to find his man, and I think it was Roma Dunes. And the game ended, time elapsed, and one of the worst moments of clock management I've ever seen, and it did cost Matt Eberflus his job. The next day, I believe it was the next day, he got fired, and I think that the favourite right now is Cliff Kingsbury to be the new head coach. But I mean, for this game itself, I mean, obviously Lions won, Bears lost is what you expect, but just what a stupid decision by a head coach, and what ultimately cost him the job.
I was watching it with my friend, and they wasn't really paying attention. And then, sorry, with my buddy, happy, that's better. So then, when Caleb threw that ball, I said to her, what just happened? And then the clock expired, and so I watched all the commentary and the punditry explaining what happened, and I was like, I thought that was the case. I couldn't believe it. He threw that with I think it was 35 seconds left, and I think he got sacked. And then they sort of were doing all their sack celebrations as they do, and the clock kept running, and just kept running. And he didn't spike it in time, and they could have kicked a field goal. They may have beaten them. I mean, they wouldn't have done anything for this season, but they may have beaten the Lions in Detroit, and that would have been huge. But I couldn't believe it. I honestly couldn't believe it. And I mean, let's be fair, right? This league is the elite of the sport. You think American football, you think the NFL. You think cage fighting, you think UFC, you think wrestling, you think WWE, right? They're the top, they're the elite. So everybody should know what they're doing and how to do their job. Matt Eberflus made a mistake like that on a game-winning drive, which it could have been. Out. Out. I'm not surprised that the Chicago top brass didn't waste any time.
Yeah, it was very, very swift, pardon the pun, to get rid of him. I mean, it's just a story of their season, really. I mean, they've had a blocked field goal, they've had a Hail Mary go against them. They've lost a few close games, but yeah, Matt Eberflus really, it cost him his job. And I think that whoever comes in, they've got to try and get a guy who's going to help Caleb Williams, because at times he's shown his potential, and I think that was going to be one of those moments. If they went on and won the game, would have been a moment where they would have looked back on it as an iconic moment in his career. Because I was saying in a group chat, shout out to Fourth and Inches group chat. If you are, any of you are listening to this podcast, I said the Bears are going to win this. I said right at the time, Bears are going to win. I had this feeling when it was like 23 to maybe 13 or something like that. I was thinking they're going to win this. It just the men just felt to be on their side. They haven't won a game on Thanksgiving, the Lions, since 2016. They lost last year to the Packers in shock fashion.
I know.
I was thinking it's just going to continue. It's going to continue being that kind of record they can't, ever break. I mean, Peyton Manning never ever won a game in Florida in his career, which is an amazing stat, which I only found out about a month ago. And I felt like, I didn't know that he never won a game in Florida, which is insane. But I was thinking it's going to be like that. It's going to be a thing where they're never going to win on Thanksgiving. It's never. I thought if they don't win this year when they're playing as well as they are, when are they going to win on Thanksgiving? But they got the win in the end. I think that if the Bears had got their field goal, I think they may well have lost on overtime. They may well have, I think we saw with many teams before, they had some momentum, but the coin toss let them down. But I think if the Bears got the field goal and they won the coin toss, I think they would have won that game. And I think it's a shame, but maybe it's the best thing for the franchise. They're not in a position to tank. They're not near the Raiders or the Patriots or Giants to get that number one overall pick. But I think certainly, they like to end the season, particularly for Caleb Williams' development. I think they'll like to end the season with a few wins, and maybe that'll be the thing for them. Moving on to other games on Thursday, Cowboys won a very uneventful, despite the scoreline of 27-20.
I believe the word is sloppy. I believe the word you're looking for is sloppy.
It was so bad. I mean, Cooper Rush against Drew Lock was never going to be a classic, but yeah, it was poor ball. But Cowboys got the win there. They got 2 in a row now. And then the Packers beat the Dolphins by 30 points to 17. I'm not going into too much because, frankly, I think they were just a better team. I think I'm happy with our second half performance. Packers are, I said it before, they're my NFC tip to win it. And I didn't really expect to win this game. It's the hardest game on the schedule we had left. And yeah, I think first half was terrible, but I was happy the way we got back in the game. And I think we'll see how the Broncos do tonight against Browns. But I think if they win tonight, it's probably playoffs done. I think we have to rely on the Broncos losing a few games. But, we've got the Jets twice. We've got the Texans, the Niners. 2 games I think are winnable with their form at the moment, both those teams. I think we could easily end the season with 4 wins. Well, it'll be 9 wins, and it might not be enough because the Broncos, if they win tonight, will be on 8 wins. I don't see them losing all but one of their games. So I think it's a big game tonight. The Chargers had lost to the Falcons like we thought they were going to. At one point, they lost 17 points to 13. Kirk Cousins, no touchdowns in 3 games. I think that could have changed it all. I think now playoffs probably done. But we had a quarterback down injured for half the year, so fair play. Packers, I'm happy for them. I want them to do well. I love Lambeau Field, but yeah, it was a shame because I think once again we didn't really answer the critics of the cold weather and the big team thing. Shane, you wanted to talk about this?
Yeah, just very briefly. Let's play it this way, right? Between my team, Ollie, Hope, and Phil's team, and Ollie Butler Henderson and your team, right? We all lost to a better team. We all lost to a team that we were exposed to, they were basically expected to lose to. Ollie's Patriots lost to the Colts. The Niners lost to the Bills. Obviously, my Ravens lost to the Eagles, which we'll talk about momentarily. And then your Dolphins lost to the Packers. So yeah, it was all expected. There's no shock in this, so we can just brush this off and move on, hopefully.
Well, move on to the Dolphins game. I'm very happy to do that. As I said before, the Chiefs did beat the Raiders 19-17. Aidan O'Connell fumbling the ball late on in the game on a potential field goal to win the game. Moving on then to Sunday, Russell Wilson had an amazing game, 414 yards, 3 touchdowns, as they beat the Bengals by 44-38. The Bengals once again losing despite scoring lots of points on offense. The Texans beat the Jags by 23-20. I actually want to touch on this very quickly because there was a moment in the game which has been, you touched it on your TikTok channel, 3rd and long. The hit from Al Jair in the game on Trevor Lawrence. I mean, it's just a scumbag move. I'm not gonna lie. You think about Vontae's birthday, did it loads of times. Once was Antonio Brown, to to do that when the guy's already sliding down, to then go and tackle him when you know he's already going down and you know the dangers of the sport, it just screams absolute scumbag. And I don't think, if I was a Texas fan, I'd want him anywhere in my team anymore. I think it's quite frankly, yeah,
it's a bit naughty. I mean, I understand, emotions get high and sort of you want to do your best and go in there with this hard hitting mentality and look like the man to everyone. But that's a bit naughty. I mean, Trev was already down. There was no reason to go in that hard. And if you watch the replay, I think he went in with his shoulder and his forearm sort of thing. If you could have caught him with an elbow wrong, that would have been it. Dangerous hit.
It's just so dangerous, and it's just again, it's just, I think, it's just scumbaggy. It's a real scumbag move to do that. And for me, you're not a real man if you do that. It's for me, it's just the coward's way out. And quite frankly, if you're listening, Al Jair, you are a complete wrong'un. Get out.
But he has apologized since then, so that makes it all okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a man cheats on his wife, only apologized because he got caught. It's like
I know. Yes, I like that.
It's like he's only apologising because people have been criticising him. He may not apologise if that never happened. Say if he'd done that tackle, Trevor Lawrence was okay. He wouldn't have never apologised. Like, he only apologised literally because everyone was slating him. And I don't really think personally I would accept that apology if I was Trevor Lawrence, personally. The Vikings went 10-2 as they beat the Arizona Cardinals in late dramatic fashion as they beat the Cardinals by 23 points to 20. Same with the Colts. They beat the Patriots 25-24 in even more dramatic fashion as they scored from a 2-point conversion to win the game late on, much to the delight of Ollie. And then the Seahawks and Jets played out a really sloppy game despite the scoreline. They won by 26 points to 21 over the Jets. And then the Commanders kept rolling. They won by 42 points to 19 against the Tennessee Titans. But let's go on to the next game, which does involve your team, which is the Philadelphia Eagles beating your Baltimore Ravens on Sunday by 24 points to 19. I mean, this was a game where I think probably an off day for you. I mean, Lamar Jackson didn't see himself. Still got 2 touchdowns, almost 300 yards. Derrick Henry got 82 yards. But it just seemed like this Eagles team really dealt with you really well, dealt with the 2 main threats. I think Zay Flowers had only about, 74 yards. It just seemed to me like the Eagles defense just really just almost
stifled us, basically.
Yeah, and just completely negated any of the threats that you have, like Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, for example. But yeah, as a Ravens fan, you probably watched it even more in focus than I did. I was probably watching it just on Red Zone. You probably watching it in full. Your take on the game?
I sat here exactly where we are right now watching it last night. And it was always going to be a tall order against this very, very good Eagles team. I mean, they didn't do a lot last year, but since they've added Saquon, he's basically transformed the team. Like, if you remember back to last year, there was rumors and people asking for Sirianni's head. But are they asking for it now? No, because they're doing well and they're winning games. And they're probably looking like one of the best teams in football. 100%. As I said, I knew this would be a tall order, and our bye week now is this coming weekend. So we've had all these games back-to-back weeks, and I mean, I'm not making excuses, but they've been battered. The offense, defense, special teams have been battered, and they need their rest. And they still just about, lost to the Eagles. It was always the narrative going into the game was who's the better running back, Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley, and on this occasion, it was Saquon. But I think the bigger story about this, and I need to take a breath, because this is going to get emotional. The biggest story coming out of this game might be, is this the end for Justin Tucker? I saw an interesting stat today. Give me 2 seconds just to get it up on my phone so I make sure it's accurate, okay? Where is it? There it is. Okay. Oh, 2 seconds. I am listening. Oh, there it is. The Ravens' 5 losses are by a combined 22 points this season. Justin Tucker has 22 points worth of missed kicks in the Ravens' 5 losses. So basically, I'm not gonna. Do you know what? Justin Tucker to me is like David De Gea to me, right? He can do no wrong in my eyes. because he's been so consistent and saved us on so many occasions and been a hero for this team. So what if we don't win the Super Bowl this year? Yes, it'll hurt, but we'll get over it and the team will carry on. You can't sort of have a level of disrespect towards somebody who's done so much for you. So if this is his last season, I'll tip my cap to him. You know, I'll say you are the greatest kicker that's ever lived. Go and enjoy yourself. You've done more than enough for us. But I think we were the best team in the first quarter. And then other than that, we let the Eagles build momentum. And I was always a big fan of Jalen Carter, the Eagles center, from when he was a rookie. And oh my God, he was so good last night. I'm a big fan of Jalen Carter.
Yeah, I mean, on Tucker, John Harbaugh's come out and said after the game that he has no plans to move on from Justin Tucker. But at the age of 35, he probably after this week certainly contemplating retirement, or certainly, maybe moving on teams, because you think about not just the fact that, that's 5 losses that are down to him with the points that you've mentioned there, which I not even realised. It's the fact that Lamar Jackson has only 3 picks this season. All of them really aren't really his fault. So you think you could be looking at if things, I know it's a butterfly effect and things might have gone differently, blah, 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 blah. But if you look at those just on face value, you could be sitting here undefeated, also with Lamar Jackson having no interceptions in the whole season. That would be an incredible season. If you were sitting here, you were undefeated, Lamar Jackson, not a single pick in the whole year, that would be amazing. So I think that certainly points out the fine lines and why, looking at them, they are, 8-5. But really, you could easily be unbeaten. And I think that shows that even though you may go into this playoffs as a wildcard team, I think certainly you should still be seen as one of the favourites, because at the end of the day, I think you proved that on your day you can beat anyone. And I think the defense will let you down. I think that is, if you're going to lose games in the playoffs, that is going to be why, because the defense has been pretty poor, particularly against the pass. But I think, and Tucker's kicking may come back and be a problem. But, you aren't far away. And I think that definitely you make the playoffs. I think you should definitely be seen as a team to look out for. So, yeah, it's a shame for Tucker, because he is, for me personally, the greatest kicker of all time. By far the best I've seen in my lifetime. But he is at that age, and I think that even the best players, this goes for any sport, have a downturn in form. And, we're changing sports here, but last year everyone was saying, sell Salah. We should have accepted that bid.
There are other teams in football, man. You know that, right? The other players, you know that.
One team only. That's all that matters. But everyone was saying last year, sell Salah. We should have accepted that bid from Saudi all those months ago. And then I was even calling for it at one point, I'm ashamed to say. But now look at him. So Tucker may be doing bad now, but he could easily next year come out and play amazing. I think he's just going through a rut. And it's not to say that he could go into the playoffs and have an amazing playoff with any sort of run, and do well there. So I think that it is bad. It's been bad all year, but it just takes one little spell of good kicks, and I'm sure he'll be back to what we all expect him to be.
What's the old expression? Form is temporary, class is permanent.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, and I think that we've seen kickers go on to their 40, so may still be old life in the dog just yet from Justin Tucker. So, yeah, I think it is. Might be the end of his time there, but you never know. It could just turn it around. Other than that, on the rest of the 9 p.m. slate, we saw the Buccaneers beat the Panthers in overtime by 26 points to 23, and the Rams beat the Saints 21-14. And then we got a game on tonight, Browns against the Broncos. That is at 1:15 a.m. for those listening in the UK, and it's at 7:15 a.m. in Eastern for those listening that side of the pond. We normally do it on the Tuesday, but this time we're doing it on a Monday. We rarely get a chance to do these predictions of the games. I said the Broncos would win it on our preview of the game last week. But for you, Shane, who wins it, Browns or Broncos?
I would love the Broncos to win, because obviously the Browns are in our division. They're not going to catch us, or they're not going to catch the Steelers. But yeah, I want to see the Broncos win. I'm a big fan of Cortland Sutton, and I think Bo Nix is very much an unfinished product, but you can see he's getting there. It's his first year in the league. When rookies go into the pros, there's this sink or swim mentality. And I think he's doing enough to keep his head above water and not drowned. And fair play to the boy. Keep it going. Yeah, Broncos to win.
Yeah. As you mentioned before, I really want the Browns to win. Not just because I think James Winston is an amazing person, but I think, I said before, I think if Broncos lose, they're 7-6, just one loss behind us, and they've got a bye week to come. If they do win the game, it'll be 8-5, 2 losses clear of us, sort of two losses less, and I do feel like that may be the end of our season. So I think it's a big game for Dolphins fans tonight. I think if they lose this game, it's still there, because the Broncos, I'm looking at their schedule now the rest of the year, if I get it quickly up. So they've got bye week next week, then they've got the Colts, Chargers, Bengals, and then Chiefs. So you think about the Ravens or the Steelers are the 5th seed, while the Chargers 6th seed. So we can afford for the Chargers to win a game there. So they win that game, the Chiefs win them. I think the Bengals on a day could beat them. They've had a lot of points on offense, just the defense let them down. And the Colts have proved, actually, the Colts, we need them to lose because they're actually ahead of us in the ranking. So I think, you think about, they could lose to the Chargers, they could lose to the Chiefs, and then we could go out and beat the Jets twice, the Niners and the Texans, and we could sneak in. So it all depends on this game for me, and I think, really hoping for a Browns win and a Broncos loss. But that is where we will end the podcast for today. Before we go, Shane, we do it normally towards the end of the year. If you were part of the voting panel, who would your MVP vote go to?
Oh, why? You know where I want it to go. He should be MV3, right? He should be, but he won't be now this year. We all know it's a quarterback award, right? Because I could easily say Saquon. We all know it's a quarterback award. It's going to go to Josh Allen, but I would love it to go to Lamar Jackson again.
Yeah, looking at the stats now, in terms of he's top 2 in terms of passing yards, in terms of touchdowns. He, if I get it up now, my phone's actually playing up, but so he is second, only behind Joe Burrow, and he has 3 interceptions, which is no one who, apart from Herbert, has got less than that, and Herbert's only got 1 pick, which is insane. But he's only got 13 touchdowns, whereas Lamar Jackson has 29. I'm not going to reveal mine because I'm doing an article as we speak for the touchdown, where I'm going to be going through the top 5 candidates and also who my pick is, as well as other writers. So keep an eye out for that on my socials. So that's how you find out who my pick is for MVP at this stage. But yeah, that is where we'll end the podcast for today. And once again, Shane, thanks for coming on. It was great to have you on again.
Always a pleasure, Andy. Always a pleasure. And just to let your listeners and viewers know, 8:30 Monday and Thursdays, Turn Along Podcast, Facebook Live and YouTube. There you go. Come find us.
Plug is in. The shameless plug is no, fair play. It's a good podcast. They all get on very well. It's so yeah, they do it live as well, so you can have it on whilst you're Thursday watching Amazon Prime football games. You can have it on in the background. So yeah, really good podcast, and they've all been on before. Ollie and Phil, Shane and Ollie. We'll be having Ollie and Phil on later on in the year to talk all things Niners. But in the meantime, this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, our Week 13 review, with, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, and with me today, our guest, Shane Harris. Don't forget to head over to the Fantasy Game Day app and use code Andy5 for a chance of £7.50 back into your account. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys for the next one. Take care.